welcome to CP's Notebook, where I let you in on my process or my current works in progress. I'm CP, and today I was working on a newer book that I started, and I decided I should turn on the camera and get my ideas on video, just so that I can have something to upload later. So I started a new project. I will call it Project Espresso. So Project Espresso is about a young woman who moves out of her neighborhood into a more upbeat part of town, and she ends up meeting a writer just like her. And they hit it off this first meeting, they exchange information, and then come around the third chapter, she learns that he is engaged. And this becomes a problem because, obviously, like I said, she really likes him. That puts a wrench in their friendship plans. But it seems like our main character, we'll call him Ollie. Our main character, Ollie, does not give a hot darn. And it's like, you got a fiance and you want to make friends. That's not really your friend, and you being sneaky. So our protagonist D, she's like trying to stay distant and be a better woman, but Ollie just keeps on roping her in, like, oh, I need help finding this word. No, you don't. So she ends up getting pulled back in, and they end up starting an affair. And that's pretty much what the book is supposed to entail, is that they have this affair that's going on. There is an element of a ticking time bomb as far as their wedding coming up, Ollie and his fiance. Obviously, the wedding ends up getting called off, or maybe that's not so obvious, but I do want that to be an element in my book, because I don't want, obviously there are going to be consequences for their actions, and I do believe that calling off the wedding is one of those consequences. And though it seems like a easy escape, I do think that Ollie is trying to be oblivious about what's going on, and that allows him to have this loss factor as far as like when the wedding gets called off, it's like, dang, I lost her. And it's like, yeah, you lost her. What did you think was going to happen? And I also wanted there to be an element of somewhere within this affair, Dee no longer feels bad about what she's doing. And that's where I got caught up, and that's where I'll probably be talking more about in this video, because I'm really trying to figure out where do we go from there. Like, how do we get to that point? And at the point that I've already outlined in the book, this is after Ollie and Dee have their first kiss, which is very small, and it's very intimate and close and private. As far as the situation is, they go to an event at the cafe that they usually frequent, and at the end of the event, which Jill was not able to go to because she was feeling under the weather, Ollie walks Dee to her car, and they sort of have a moment where it's like, don't say nothing else because I don't want you to ruin this for us. And he's like, ruin what? And then he walks up to her, kisses her, you feel me, like true book talk Wattpad fashion, and they go their separate ways. Come the next week, Dee decides that she wants to stay home because I'm not finna go into this cafe and be next to this man acting like it's all ha ha he he. No, this is serious for me. I'm not that type of woman. I just would never do that. And he ends up calling her, talking about he need help finding a word. And I think that's sort of what I made their little thing, is that she helps him find words that he doesn't know, and for that he calls her Coda the Thesaurus. It's a mouthful, but at this point I'm trying to figure out how we get from her feeling like this is not the type of woman that I am, to her no longer feeling bad about it, and that being a driving force of this affair, and also being a driving force of Ollie being able to put in his head that this isn't something wrong because she doesn't feel bad about it, and Jill doesn't know. So he's getting the best of both worlds. But at a certain point, obviously things come crashing down. Big tower moment. Wedding gets called off, and he distances himself from Dee. And Jill's parents get involved as far as like calling him and being like, what the hell is going on? Why is the wedding called off? What did you do? He doesn't really have much of an answer because his only answer is, I cheated on her. Like, I had an affair. Like, it wasn't even just a cheat. It wasn't a quick little pump pass. No, he was staying at that lady's house. He was spending the night. They had little traditions. That was an affair. An affair. Like, that was an affair. Affair. It was an affair. And if you're curious, the reason why I'm calling this Project Espresso is because they met in a cafe, as writers do. I feel like that was fitting. Plus, I really like that Sabrina Carpenter song. Think about me every night, oh, is it that sweet? I guess so. One thing that I'm seeing as I'm going through my notes of the things that I've outlined for the chapters up into this point of chapter 6 that I'm still trying to figure out is that there is a lot of misplaced blame, right? There's a lot of not taking accountability. And I think that is one thing that obviously drives this whole plot forward. And I think that's something that works into the point of me trying to figure out, like, why does Dee no longer feel bad about it? What makes her no longer feel bad? But I think there's a level of like this give and take, this push and pull of where to place the blame. So obviously, first, Dee is like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not that type of woman. But then, as Ollie continues to like be so charming and flirtatious and doing all of these things, I think that's when she no longer starts to feel bad about it, because it's like, you obviously don't care, and you the one who sat there and got on a knee and proposed to this lady, and now all of a sudden you don't care what you're doing. You know you flirting with me. You're not a child. You know what I mean? So I think that's where that lack of accountability comes in, as far as like, if you don't care, then neither do I. And then it switches to Ollie obviously being like, if she doesn't care, then neither do I, because there's nothing that I'm doing that's wrong at this point. But neither of them are realizing that, like, y'all both in the wrong. Y'all both horrible human beings at this point. Like, y'all both just need to go somewhere. I think that's definitely, that just cracked the code a little bit. That definitely just cracked the code, because I'm trying to figure out, like, what makes her go from, nope, I'm gonna just stay home, to all of a sudden, you call on house calls like you need a private doctor. Excuse me? How did she get there? But it's because it's this misplaced blame. It's a lot of that who me sort of mentality. It's this phenomenon that I think about a lot, where it's like, if you're in a crowd of people and someone needs medical help and someone's like, someone call 911. If you hear someone call 911, you're not going to be the one to call 911, because it's like, they said somebody else going to do it, I'm sure. And no one calls 911. It's because if there is nowhere to place the accountability, no one's going to take accountability. And neither of them are pointing the finger at each other, and no one from the outside is cognizant enough of their situation to point the finger at them saying, hey, y'all wrong. So neither of them feel like they're wrong. To that, a certain point, it's like, all right, everything that came crashing down. Somebody's to blame for this. And I think at that point, Dee will still not feel like it's her. I think at this point, she has disavowed all of the blame for so long that it's like, it's still not me. You was the one that was in a relationship, buddy. And she's still wrong. And I don't know what her consequence is yet. I was watching a video yesterday or the day before yesterday, actually. And I think that's her name, Kate Matesic. I don't know how to say her last name. I'm so sorry. But she was basically talking about the fact that, like, you have to allow your characters to have punishments. Like, there have to be consequences for their bad actions. There can't always be a deus ex machina that comes in and is like, oh, all of a sudden everything is fine. Like, no, you make bad decisions and you get consequences for that. Every action has an equaler and worse reaction. To me, the wedding being called off is not a big enough consequence. There needs to be more. There needs to be more of like a butterfly effect of like all the things that y'all been doing on the low it needs to come up and actually hit in some way. Like, it needs to make sense, like, this changed. And one thing that I thought about as a consequence for D, our woman protagonist, is the fact that the book that she's working on doesn't pan out. Like, she publishes it and it doesn't do well. And I'm like, it needs to make sense in context of the situation. So I don't know if maybe she was trying to market it to the people in the cafe and they knew about Jill and they were all like, no, we're not going to read this lady's book or something. Maybe that one just doesn't make enough sense, but something along the lines of something that will actually hurt her, aside from like something that just hurts Ollie and then in turn hurts her because she cares about the man. Like, I want it to be something that actually hurts her because this is her karma. She's the one that's wrong too, right? Also, something that I've been sort of stuck on, but I guess I'll just talk through and I might find my solution, is how does this actually start, right? Because at first I had the thought of it being like a one-time thing, but something that happens one time is not a habit. Something that happens one time can be pushed off as a mistake. I want this to be a habit. This is an affair. This is not a one-time thing. This is something that was growing and festering and turning into something that they may not have seen, right? They may not have foreseen, actually. They saw it because they was doing it. But they didn't foresee this. They didn't go into it thinking like, this is what we finna do. They just wanted to be friends at first. And they ended up, for the lack of a better term, falling in love with each other. So I was like, it needs to start obviously in a more innocent way, but then after the first instance there needs to be some remorse. But then that's when, and this is all coming right now, that's why I need to just talk through it. Sometimes you need to just talk through your ideas, you know what I mean? So obviously after the first instance there needs to be a level of remorse, at least from Dee's side. This is when the disavowing of the accountability comes from, I think, maybe even Ollie's side first, where it's like, how could it be wrong if it feels so right? You know, cliche, but I think I could spin it in a way where it makes sense in the context of their situation specifically. And then after that, she starts to like distance herself more and more from the blame. Which I'm sure he probably has already done, because if you can tell somebody else like what we're doing isn't wrong, you already don't feel like it's wrong. And it begins to become like this second nature, like this is just what we do sort of thing. And I also, one thing that I really wanted it to be is like sort of unspoken in a way. Like, it's not very not very well thought out, and it's not very much so plotted either. It's more so of like, this is just what we do, this is our dynamic, this is what our friendship consists of. And that is also a way that they start to like disavow this accountability, like take all the blame away, where it's like, we're just friends that do this sometimes. Like, no, y'all are down dirty dogs, y'all are wrong. She feels a level of possession of him, and I think because she feels the way that she feels for him, but also because of the stakes, what the stakes feel like for her is the way that she sort of also like displaces this blame away from herself. And the stakes that I'm working through is the fact of like, she feels like Ollie is the one for her, and that if she doesn't go about things the way that she's going about them, she will miss out on an opportunity for true love with him. And within that, because she feels like he's the one for her, she feels possessive over him, so much so that it's like she doesn't feel bad for what she's doing because he belongs to me. Like Ariana Grande said, the boy is mine. I can't wait to trial. Let's get into trial. Brandy and Monica, the boy is mine, the boy is mine, the boy is mine, the boy is mine. Like, he belongs to me. I don't know what you want me to do. Like, we're just friends that do this. Sometimes he belongs to me. He will be mine forever. And that's sort of the attitude that she gains throughout this. And that's why I feel like the consequences need to be bigger than just like, oh, he's pulling away because he feels a little grief around this wedding. Like, that's not enough. That's not enough. It's not enough. Like, I need something bigger, and I'm trying to figure out what could that be. But I do want it to be like a windfall of consequences. Like, I need it to be like a couple that just like, oh, yeah, you've been wilding out. And sadly though, I did want them to end up together because that's sort of what the idea started off as for me. Is that like these two people that are meant to be together go through a little bit of, you know, trial and tribulation before they can finally be together, and then they end up happily ever after. But I don't want that to be without consequence in the beginning. So I'm trying to figure out, like I said, along with the cafe being like, you can't come back here, maybe even along with her book not doing well, what else can happen that is a suitable enough punishment for the crime? Now me catching the eureka moment on video. Okay, so I just had a very, very aha thought. Forget the book ever coming out. She's working on the book in the book. But I just had a thought of like, what if this affair is taking up so much of her mind, taking up so much of her time, she's so focused on this man, that she is not meeting her deadlines. And thus, she loses her book deal. Now that's a consequence. That's a consequence. Because now what? This is something that you all will learn about me as I continue to post more and more videos. I'm always thinking of something after. I'm always thinking of like, what's next after this? As far as like stories go. Like, I start a project and I could be outlining chapter 1 and I'm like, but book 2 though? Cause why in the world am I sitting here thinking about no book 2? You ain't even halfway through book 1. Stop it. Like, but book 2 though, it's gonna be crazy. In this new consequence that I just figured out, I don't want it to obviously pop up out of nowhere. Like, obviously that's very unrealistic for out of nowhere her publisher is like, nope, no more book deal for you. Like, no, it has to happen gradually. It has to be something that is like littered throughout, you know, these chapters until it gets to the fact of like, no, we're not doing this. This is not the book that you pitched to us, and we're not taking it. Sorry, boo. No. And what I wrote down is that her agent, editor, publisher, I'm not sure yet, is like on their check-in meetings, and maybe within the second or third meeting is like, what you've been bringing to the check-ins is not like surmountable enough. It's not sustainable enough for a full book. Like, this is not the work that you promised us. And before, when you didn't give us what we thought we were going to get, we just assumed that you were gaining your footing in this project, and you just have not gained your footing at all. I don't know what you're focused on, but you need to put your tunnel vision blinders on. Put your blinders on, Miss Girl, or you're going to lose the deal. And she just does not take heed to this warning, like, at all. Like, maybe she tries to, and she just gets re-distracted. But ultimately, she is going to lose this book deal. Because why you messing with that lady man? And now you don't got no job. I developed in my little notes that I was taking that she ends up pivoting into self-publishing, but because the book really doesn't, it isn't good. And it's not bad, but it isn't good. Like, it isn't her quality. She makes some money from her audience, you know, that just wants to see what she's working on and stuff, but she doesn't make a surmountable, like, it's not a good amount. And so now she has to basically start from square one, and I think she wants to try the self-publishing again, as far as like trying to give it the quality that she is known for, and sort of doing away with the idea of traditional publishing, because it may not just be the thing for her. And obviously she didn't try it the right way, because she wasn't actually working on nothing. But you know how sometimes you find a whole lot of ways to ignore the fact that you need to take accountability for your actions. And I think this is one of those ways where she's still disavowing her actions, where it's like, no, it just wasn't for me, so I'm just trying to self-publish a thing. You mean when you promised your agent that you were going to give these publishers this level of work that you did not deliver to them? That didn't work out. Of course it didn't. Why would it? So, yeah. But then I also figured out that this is going to end up bringing her and Ollie closer, because she's going to end up leaning on him, because like after a certain point, the money going to run out. Okay, she didn't get that much money from the self-publishing, so it's really going, like, of course I don't want her to run out quickly, but I think she does confide in him, like, yeah, I lost my book deal and I self-published and it didn't do well because, I've been focused on other things, occupied, and I don't have an income right now, and I don't have anything lined up, and I may not be able to afford my rent soon. He's like, okay, well, I'll just pay the rent. I'll pay the rent. And I know it doesn't seem like these consequences are sticking, but I really want them to end up together. Obviously not the end of this book, because they're not going to end up together in this book. It's just, they got to go through the motions for a quick little second. And then, like I said, they're going to be together in book 2. But we're not working on book 2 yet, okay? We're not working on book 2 yet. I'm just thinking ahead. You know me, I got to be proactive, Thank you so much for helping me talk through this. You're a very great listener, and I'm gonna work on this on my own. I hope you're working on something yourself, and until next time, just keep writing.